you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, who you are and what you do. And
So I'm Rebecca Bloomfield, and I live in downtown Falls Village, and I do a few things. I am a photographer, and I'm the creative administrator here at the Center on Main, and I work remotely for a cooking school in New York called the League of Kitchens, where all of the instructors are immigrant women who teach their family recipes and live in New York.
nice.
Yeah.
And you're also a yoga instructor.
That's right, thank you. I forgot. I'm also a yoga instructor. I teach at Be Well Yoga in Canaan.
Good.
Yeah. I remember my very first yoga class was when I was 13. My mom invited my best friend and me to go to a yoga class with her. And at 13, we just kind of giggled our way through it. You know, we didn't quite understand it. It seemed so foreign and, you know, funny to us because I didn't know anything about yoga at the time. Fast forward to when I was, I don't know, in my late 20s, I guess. I was living in Lansing, Michigan, and there was a yoga studio there. I was farming at the time, and there was a yoga studio there that a good friend told me about, and I started going and really came to love it as a community experience, as kind of a spiritual practice, of course, as a physical practice as well, and exercise. But it felt like a really beautiful way to connect with people and myself. And so I started going more regularly and then decided to do a teacher training program at that studio. And that was in 2012, so I've been teaching since then. And it wasn't until maybe 6 months ago I started teaching at Be Well Community Yoga in Canaan. I had taken a break for a few years, actually. I felt like I needed to just focus on my own yoga practice instead of teaching, and that ended up being a really good decision, and I'm really happy to be back teaching again. It feels really meaningful to me, and it's been a really cool way to meet other people in the community who also value that kind of practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of your stories of teaching food in New York?
Yeah, so
That sounds interesting. That's
it is interesting.
very different.
I have a few different food-related things in my life. I've taught gardening and farming. I had my own small-scale organic vegetable farm for a couple of years. I moved here to Falls Village to work for the Adama Farm and Fellowship Program. And so I've had that food and farming experience in my life, and that's always a big part of me, even though I'm not doing that anymore. But now I'm working at the League of Kitchens in New York, and it's a really cool organization. It was started by a woman named Lisa Gross, who is Jewish and Korean, and she grew up with her Korean grandmother in her home. Her grandma would always be cooking in the kitchen, and Lisa wanted to learn how to cook everything, and her grandma would just shoo her out of the kitchen and tell her to do more important things like study. And which I think is pretty common for, you know, an immigrant experience, that, you know, they want their children to focus on studying and going to university and things like that. And as Lisa got older, she realized she didn't have the skills and knowledge to reproduce the delicious food that she grew up eating that her grandmother made. And so she created this organization where, you know, anyone can sign up for a class with an immigrant from one of, I think we have 15 countries represented now. And, you know, there are countries like Iran, Uzbekistan, Argentina, Nepal, Bangladesh, Mexico. Indonesia, Ukraine. People can take an in-person class at the home of the instructor or an online class from the comfort of your own kitchen, no matter where you are in the world. And you're walked through by these incredible immigrant women how to create some of their family recipes.
So where were you born, Rebecca?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where I grew up. And that's where my parents still live, and that will always feel like home on some level.
Do you remember any stories or anecdotes growing up?
Sure. So I have two sisters. They were a big part of my childhood, and they're two of my closest friends. And I had a great childhood. I have a lot of memories of good quality time with grandparents. All of my grandparents lived in town, and we had family gatherings with first cousins and aunts and uncles and parents, grandparents, and there was a lot of love, and we all made time for each other. I went to Montessori school from, first grade through fifth grade, I think, and that was a great fit for me, I think. It was small, intimate. The pace is based largely on how each student learns and what their individual needs are, and it's very experiential, and I think that was a great fit for me as a kid. And yeah, I spent a lot of time outside. As a kid, playing on the street with neighbors, and it's a pretty, I think, classic childhood thing. But also over the summer, my family would go camping or do canoe trips or things like that. We would get into nature. Nothing too wild, but I definitely grew up with an appreciation for the outdoors and natural beauty and things like that. So I was in Ohio through high school, and then for college I went to Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, and I was there for 4 years, and I studied international development, and that was I have dual citizenship. I'm Canadian and American, and so it was great to have the option to go to university in Canada.
And when did you get interested in photography?
I've always loved photography, and I think it was in college that I really started focusing on it more as a hobby and would offer to take photos for friends or families, events or gatherings and things like that. It wasn't until 2020, during the pandemic, when I had a bit of downtime, that I decided to turn it into something that was more professional and that I could make some money with. But it's always been, actually since high school. I remember I took a photography course in high school, and photography as a form of art is really something that I got into in high school. And then what I love about photography is how you can document something that's unfolding or happening I don't tend to like posing people or creating something that isn't a natural moment. So I love photography as a form of documenting what's really happening. And I've started doing it more professionally in the past handful of years.
Where do you get your ideas for photo shoots?
I do different kinds of photo shoots. Some are ideas that someone will bring to me, like they have an event or something like that they want photographed, or their business, they're trying to get more photos that represent their story, who they are, their process, things like that. So they want some photos that tell that story. So those ideas are brought to me. And then I love doing projects like storytelling projects. For example, a few years ago, Adam Schur and Meg Schur and I did a project during COVID called Small Town Big Talk, where we interviewed folks in the community about their experiences and beliefs, and it was, I love those kinds of projects where photography can be a way of connecting with people and you can use a photograph to tell a story. I also did a self-portrait project during the pandemic. I live alone and so was quarantined, and it was a really unique experience. And so your question was, how do you get your ideas? I think that the idea of photographing myself in such a strange experience that I knew would likely never happen again, it felt like this opportunity to document something unique, to do it in an artistic way, and doing that project brought meaning to my days. You know, I would think, oh, this thing I'm doing right now might be an interesting thing to photograph. It started, the photography project kind of wound its way into my daily experience, and it brought some meaning to my everyday during quarantine. So some ideas are brought to me and some just kind of sprout on their own. So I love photography, of course. I love painting, and I don't mean anything, you know, technical. I'm not doing watercolor landscapes or anything like that. I love the process of making art, so having art materials and just playing with the materials and really letting go of any attachment to what it's going to be in the end. And so I like the process of creating and using art materials or photography to do that. And yeah, that's something we're trying to do more here too at the Center on Main, is provide a space like that for people to explore art, even if they don't identify as artists necessarily. I think we're all a little creative. Yeah.
Good, good. What haven't we hit on in your life?
I love your questions. What haven't we hit on?
You live alone. Do you ever wish that you had a spouse? Or?
So that's a good question. I do live alone. I really love living alone. Right now I have a partner who has his own home, and you know, we get time together, but I've always loved being on my own. And yeah, I love my house. It was a really big deal for me to be able to buy my home, and I love it. And I love being in Falls Village. I really love being an aunt. I have the two sisters, each have 2 children, and that's a big part of my life, getting to be an aunt to these 4 little ones. And I really try to prioritize spending time with them. And part of what how I've designed my life, part of what that allows me to do is to have the flexibility to spend time with family. You know, some of my work I can do remotely, some of my work I'm my own boss, and because of that I'm able to make time to be with family, and that's something that feels really rich in my life, to have that time. Yeah.
So when you photograph people, do you look for action moments?
Yeah, my favorite kind of photo shoot to do is one where where I'm basically ignored, you know, and I can just be a fly on the wall and yes, take photos of something happening. It could be, you know, kids playing or someone cooking dinner or, you know, an event. But I like just finding, it sounds a little cheesy, I maybe need to think of another way to say it, but finding beautiful moments in something that's very kind of typical or everyday. I do a lot of photographing my own family, my nieces and nephews. They're great subjects also because they know me and are very comfortable with me. And when someone's comfortable with me, it makes my job a little bit easier because they're more open and relaxed. I also have some travel photos. I've spent some time in Italy. That's one of my loves, and definitely I don't know if I can call it a hobby, but another place that feels like a home in a different way to me. So I have some travel photos from Italy that you can see on the website, or I can send you some.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of those.
Yeah, yeah.
You've recently been appointed the creative director or something like that
I think it's creative administrator, but creative director
administrator.
sounds good. Yeah.
Here at the Center on Main.
Yeah.
What are some of your plans to increase the activities here? Because it's a beautiful space that just
Isn't it
doesn't get
beautiful?
used very much.
It has so much potential.
And now, 12 Moons Coffee House presents the Joint Chiefs at the Center on Main in Falls Village.
Welcome that day when it comes from me. Will there be thunder, lightning, or rain? Will you rise up or will you fall in shame? Come that day when it comes from me. Yeah, come that day when you reach that door. St. Peter's gonna ask you what you come here for. Did you help your brother or did you cause him pain? Come that day when he calls your name.
It's of course been used for the children's theater for years, and that's been, I mean, the most packed I've seen it has been on an afternoon where there's a children's theater production. It really brings Falls Village together. It's kind of amazing. And I've had people tell me that they come to all 3 performances in a weekend at the children's theater. It's really, yeah, it brightens up the community, and so that brings a lot of life to the building. And as you said, there's a lot of time that it's just not used, and it's such a beautiful space. It's so central, and there's something about it that does feel, maybe because it used to be a church and it has that old church kind of vibe, but I feel like there's a spiritual energy or something here, you know, and meaningful things can happen here. I know that's a little vague, but so specifically, we're doing some art making experiences. We want to offer the community interactive experiences related to art and community connections. So rather than turning ourselves into, for example, a concert venue where people come and sit and watch something, which of course is really valuable on its own, but we want to focus a little more on having events where people come and participate. So they're involved in making art, they're involved in music or dance or conversation, and we want it to be, yeah, really interactive, connective. One thing I'm really excited about here at the Center on Main, and we have a program on Friday called Big Talk. It's an event where it's facilitated and people come and are paired off and switch their, different partners throughout the night to answer questions that are meant to be deeper than the small talk questions we tend to ask, in our everyday lives. And so I feel really excited about creating more opportunities to to help people find meaning and connection with other people, especially in their community. You know, we live in this small town, we've all chosen to make a life here, and I think it would be a beautiful thing if people knew each other in a deeper way. And so that's an event on Friday night that anyone can come to, and I think that'll be cool. But I want to do more like that. I love that kind of meaning-making activity. I think that people, and research shows that people used to connect to religion, for example, in a way that they don't anymore, where they used to get meaning and community through religion, going to church or synagogue, etc. And fewer people are doing that now, but still have that longing for connection and meaning. Yes. They're just looking for it in different ways. And so I want to, feels like a bit of an experiment here, trying to figure out how to meet that need for connection and especially in a world where, while we're so connected in terms of the internet and all of that, I think it can also disconnect us in a lot of ways. There are so many more opportunities for chatting with people and meeting people from everywhere, and it seems like it's connection, but I think there's something that really gets lost. And so I want to create a place where people can connect in a meaningful way.
What am I forgetting, Rebecca?
Well, you're not forgetting anything because you're, you've asked great questions.
This has been nice.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for your interest.
You have a very relaxed way about you, which is good.
Good, thanks.
So
Same,
thank you
too.
very much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It means a lot that you're interested in my story.
Good.